Confidence is widely praised as a virtue. Society tells you to build it, display it, cultivate it like a badge of honor. Parents encourage it, teachers reward it, leaders demand it. But very few people ever ask a more dangerous question. What happens when confidence becomes real? Not the fragile imitation people rehearse in front of mirrors, not the hollow confidence that collapses the moment someone raises their voice, not the motivational fantasy sold in self-help slogans. Real confidence, the kind that is silent, unapologetic, immovable. Because the moment confidence becomes genuine, it stops being socially comfortable. And this is where the darker truth begins. You see, most societies claim to admire confident individuals, but what they truly reward is controlled confidence, confidence that stays within invisible boundaries, confidence that does not threaten hierarchy, confidence that does not disrupt the balance of power, confidence that does not make others question their own position. But when a person develops true confidence, those boundaries start to dissolve, and people notice. Not consciously at first. The human brain rarely analyzes these things with logic. It reacts instinctively, like animals sensing a shift in dominance within the pack. Because beneath the polite language of civilization, human beings are still deeply wired for hierarchy, status, control, position, and confidence. Real confidence is a signal that disrupts these structures. It announces something dangerous. It whispers to everyone in the room, this person cannot be easily controlled. That is why true confidence produces a strange reaction in people. Admiration from a distance, but discomfort up close. You have probably felt this before. A moment when you spoke with certainty, when you refused to shrink your opinion, when you stood your ground without apology, and suddenly the atmosphere changed. Someone laughed dismissively. Someone challenged you more aggressively than necessary. Someone attempted to subtly put you back in your place, not because you were wrong, but because confidence alters perception, and perception governs power. Machiavelli understood this long before modern psychology tried to describe it. Power is rarely about brute force. It is about perception, about what people believe you are capable of. A confident individual introduces uncertainty into the social environment. If you do not hesitate, people assume you know something they do not. If you do not seek approval, people assume you have leverage they cannot see. If you remain calm while others react emotionally, people begin to question their own position. Confidence becomes a psychological weapon, not because you are using it deliberately, but because the human mind interprets signals faster than it processes facts. The brain constantly scans for indicators of dominance and submission, tone of voice, eye contact, posture, speed of response, emotional stability. All of these signals feed into one unconscious question that governs social interaction: who holds the higher position? When you display true confidence, you disrupt that calculation, and disruption creates tension. Some people respond to this tension with respect. Others respond with hostility, because confidence does something profoundly unsettling to those who lack it. It forces comparison, and comparison is painful. Most individuals spend their lives carefully constructing a fragile internal narrative, a story that says they are competent, capable, respected. But when someone enters the environment carrying genuine confidence, that narrative becomes unstable. It exposes the difference between performed certainty and actual certainty. This is why confident individuals are often tested, not logically, psychologically. People interrupt them more often, challenge them more aggressively, probe for weaknesses. It resembles the behavior of predators circling a rival animal, not attacking immediately, just observing, testing, looking for hesitation, looking for doubt. Because if hesitation appears, the illusion collapses. But if hesitation never appears, something interesting happens. The dynamic reverses. The testers begin to lose certainty themselves.
And that is where the true power of confidence begins to reveal its darker side. Confidence doesn't merely influence how you see yourself. It changes how others behave around you. It reshapes their decisions, their tone, their courage, their willingness to challenge you or obey you. Most people never realize this. They think confidence is about feeling good internally, but confidence is not primarily an emotion. It is a signal that travels through social environments like a silent broadcast. And those who understand how signals operate begin to see society differently. Because suddenly, you notice something disturbing. Many people who appear powerful are actually insecure, and many people who appear quiet are quietly in control, which raises a dangerous question. If confidence is a signal that influences perception, and perception influences power, then what happens when someone learns to control that signal intentionally? What happens when confidence stops being accidental and becomes strategic? This is the moment where confidence stops being a personality trait and becomes a weapon. Now ask yourself something honestly. When you walk into a room, do people feel your presence before you speak? Or do you disappear into the background of other voices? There is no neutral answer to that question. In every environment, hierarchy is forming, constantly, silently, relentlessly. So comment below with this simple declaration: I refuse to stay invisible. Because very few people are willing to say that publicly, and those who do already understand the game is different for them. Now, the deeper question begins. If confidence changes how others treat you, why do so many people subconsciously resist developing it? Why do they shrink themselves, hesitate, soften their voice, dilute their opinions? The answer is not weakness, it is fear, but not the fear you think.
There is a reason most people never develop real confidence, not because they lack ability, not because they lack intelligence, but because deep down they sense the consequences. True confidence changes the way the social world responds to you, and human beings, despite their talk of individuality, are biologically wired for social survival. For most of human history, survival depended on belonging to a tribe. Isolation meant death. Rejection meant vulnerability. Being cast out of the group meant exposure to predators, starvation, and enemies. Those instincts did not disappear when civilization emerged. They simply changed form. Today, the predators are social rather than physical. The threats are reputational rather than lethal. But the nervous system still reacts to exclusion with primal intensity. This is why people constantly perform subtle acts of self-reduction. They soften their voice. They laugh at jokes that are not funny. They pretend to agree with opinions they privately reject. They dilute their competence so others do not feel threatened. They disguise ambition behind politeness. These behaviors are not random. They are ancient survival strategies. The brain is asking a simple question: will standing out make me a target? And the honest answer is often yes, because confidence disrupts comfort. Imagine a quiet social environment where everyone operates within familiar roles. The talkative one dominates conversation. The agreeable one nods along. The self-doubting one asks permission before speaking. The hierarchy is stable. Then suddenly, someone enters the interaction who does not follow these patterns. They speak clearly. They do not rush their words. They do not apologize for their opinion. They do not seek validation before making a statement. They simply say what they believe. Immediately, the psychological atmosphere changes. Some people lean closer, intrigued. Others feel something darker rise in their chest: irritation, suspicion, a subtle desire to challenge the newcomer. Because confidence creates a problem for insecure hierarchies. It introduces a new variable. If this person truly believes in their own authority, the existing structure must adjust. Someone might lose position. Someone might lose influence. Someone might lose the illusion of superiority they have carefully protected. And illusions are fragile things. Machiavelli observed that power structures are sustained not only by strength, but also by belief. People must believe in someone's authority for it to remain stable. Confidence interferes with that belief system, not by direct attack, but by contrast. A single calm voice can expose the nervousness of 10 others. A single unshaken posture can make the rest of the room appear uncertain. This is why confident individuals are often labeled with strange accusations: arrogant, intimidating, difficult. Not because these labels are always accurate, but because labeling is a defense mechanism. If the group can redefine confidence as arrogance, they regain psychological control. They restore the hierarchy. They turn the threat into a social violation rather than a power shift. But here is the darker layer most people never notice. The confident individual becomes a mirror, and mirrors make people uncomfortable. When someone stands firmly in their own identity, it forces everyone around them to confront their own hesitation, their own compromises, their own quiet surrender to expectations. And human beings do not enjoy confronting these truths, so they do something predictable. They test the confident person. A subtle interruption during a conversation, a sarcastic remark disguised as humor, a dismissive tone when responding to an idea. These are not random social behaviors, they are dominance probes. Predators in nature do the same thing when encountering another animal. They do not immediately attack, they circle, they apply pressure, they observe reactions. One flinch can determine the outcome. Human psychology operates the same way. Someone interrupts you to see if you will stop speaking. Someone challenges you to see if you will retreat. Someone mocks you to see if you will become defensive. These are not debates, they are diagnostic tools. The moment you hesitate, the hierarchy stabilizes again. You are placed back into a predictable role. But when hesitation does not appear, something far more interesting happens. The challenger begins to feel uncertainty, and uncertainty is destabilizing, because now they are confronting someone who refuses to participate in the expected script. Confidence becomes unsettling, even dangerous, not because it harms others directly, but because it removes the invisible leash that governs most human behavior. Once someone stops seeking approval, the usual methods of social control begin to fail. Guilt loses its power, mockery loses its sting, pressure loses its leverage, and that's when the real psychological shift begins, because people who cannot control you must decide between two responses: respect or elimination. History is full of examples of individuals who displayed strong confidence and were admired by some while quietly resented by others. Leaders, strategists, reformers, disruptors. Confidence attracts loyalty from those seeking strength, but it provokes hostility from those protecting fragile authority. And this is why true confidence has a dark side that no motivational speech ever mentions. The more confident you become, the more visible you become. The more visible you become, the more you are evaluated, judged, measured, challenged, watched. Many people sense this unconsciously, so they shrink themselves. They choose safety over presence, silence over influence, comfort over power. But the few who do not enter a different social reality entirely, a reality where every interaction becomes a subtle negotiation of status, where every pause, every tone shift, every decision communicates something about position. So consider this carefully. When pressure appears in social situations, do you instinctively lower your presence, or do you become even calmer, even more deliberate, even more controlled? There are two types of people in tense environments: those who shrink and those who grow more precise. Which one are you? Write in the comments, "I stay calm under pressure," because those who say it publicly begin conditioning their own identity, and identity, once declared, becomes difficult to betray. But confidence alone is not enough. In fact, raw confidence can be dangerous if it is not paired with something far more strategic: awareness. Because without awareness,
confidence becomes recklessness, and reckless confidence creates enemies faster than it creates power.
Confidence, when it first awakens in a person, often behaves like fire, uncontrolled, bright, visible from a distance, and fire attracts attention. This is the mistake many people make when they begin to discover their own power. They confuse confidence with constant expression. They believe strength must be demonstrated in every conversation, every disagreement, every moment of friction. But this is not power. This is exposure, and exposure is dangerous. Machiavelli understood something that most modern discussions about confidence ignore. Power is not simply about possessing strength, it is about controlling when that strength becomes visible. The inexperienced individual believes confidence must be proven repeatedly. They speak more loudly. They assert their opinions more frequently. They push back against every challenge to show they cannot be dominated. At first, this appears impressive, but slowly something else begins to happen. They become predictable. Predictability is the weakness predators search for. Because once someone becomes predictable, their reactions can be anticipated, and anticipation creates control. The most powerful individuals rarely fall into this trap. Their confidence exists, but it does not constantly announce itself. It waits, it observes, it calculates. This is the darker evolution of confidence, when it stops seeking recognition and starts gathering information. You see, confidence without awareness creates unnecessary battles, and unnecessary battles drain influence. Imagine two individuals who both possess strong internal certainty. The first person reacts instantly to every slight. Every disagreement becomes a confrontation. Every challenge becomes a demonstration of pride. But the second individual behaves differently. When challenged, they do not react immediately. They pause. They observe the challenger. They measure tone, intention, motivation. Is this person insecure? Are they testing boundaries? Are they attempting to establish dominance in front of others? Or are they simply seeking clarity? That moment of observation changes everything, because the second individual is no longer reacting emotionally. They are diagnosing, and diagnosis creates advantage. Most people are not aware of their own psychological patterns. They repeat the same behaviors in every environment. The sarcastic colleague who mocks others for validation, the friend who interrupts constantly to maintain attention, the authority figure who uses pressure because they fear losing control. These patterns are visible to those who watch carefully, and once patterns are visible, manipulation becomes effortless. This is where true confidence becomes dangerous. Not loud confidence, not theatrical confidence, but composed confidence. The kind that sits quietly while everyone else reveals themselves. The kind that does not rush to prove anything, because it already understands something fundamental about human psychology. People expose themselves when they believe they are in control. They talk more. They relax their defenses. They reveal insecurities disguised as opinions. And the confident observer learns. Every pause becomes data. Every emotional reaction becomes a map. Every attempt at dominance becomes a signal of weakness. Most people cannot tolerate silence during tension. They rush to fill the space with explanations, arguments, or justifications. But the individual who is comfortable with silence gains a powerful advantage. Silence forces the other person to reveal more. Silence creates psychological pressure. Silence makes insecure individuals uncomfortable, and discomfort exposes truth. Think carefully about this. When someone criticizes you unexpectedly, what is your first instinct? To defend yourself? To explain? To argue? Those reactions are natural. They are also predictable. And predictable reactions are easy to control. But when a confident individual simply pauses, looks calmly at the speaker, and waits, the dynamic shifts. The critic suddenly feels the weight of their own words.
Doubt enters their mind. Did I misjudge this person? Did I push too far? Should I soften my tone? Confidence, when combined with restraint, creates psychological gravity. People begin adjusting themselves around you without you saying a word. This is why the most dangerous individuals in any hierarchy are not the loudest, they are the most composed. They reveal very little about their internal state. They respond slowly, deliberately, strategically, and because of this, people cannot easily read them. Uncertainty is powerful. When others cannot predict your reactions, they become cautious. When they become cautious, they stop challenging you impulsively. And when challenges decrease, influence quietly expands. But here is the deeper truth. Confidence without emotional discipline collapses under pressure. Many people feel confident when situations are comfortable, when conversations are friendly, when no one is questioning their competence. But confidence that survives only in comfort is fragile. Real confidence appears during pressure, during disagreement, during moments when others attempt to destabilize you. That is when your internal structure becomes visible. Are you controlled or reactive? Are you deliberate or impulsive? Are you observing or merely defending? Because the moment you become reactive, you surrender control of the interaction, and those who control reactions control outcomes. This is why elite strategists cultivate something that looks like indifference, not because they lack emotion, but because they refuse to let others control it. Calm becomes armor, silence becomes strategy, patience becomes dominance. Now consider something carefully. When someone tries to provoke you, do they succeed? Or do they slowly realize they are speaking to a wall that cannot be moved? Answer honestly, because the difference between those two realities determines whether you are shaping the environment or being shaped by it. If you understand this principle, comment below, "My reactions are my power." Very few people truly understand that statement. Most people give their reactions away freely, and whoever controls your reactions controls you. But even this level of confidence carries a hidden danger, because the moment you become difficult to manipulate, people begin searching for other ways to regain leverage. Subtle alliances form, reputations begin to circulate, influence shifts quietly behind the surface.
The moment you become difficult to control, something subtle begins to happen around you. At first, it is almost invisible. The tone of conversations changes slightly. Certain people become more polite than necessary. Others become strangely distant. Some watch you more closely than before. This is not imagination. It is the natural response of a social environment adjusting to a new variable. Because once a person demonstrates composure, certainty, and resistance to pressure, they quietly step outside the normal behavioral patterns that most groups rely on. And groups rely on patterns more than people realize. Every social structure, workplaces, friendships, communities, even families, develops invisible rules about how individuals are supposed to behave. Who leads conversations? Who follows? Who jokes? Who apologizes? Who challenges? Who stays silent? These roles stabilize the hierarchy. They create predictability. But confidence disrupts predictability. When someone stops apologizing unnecessarily, when they refuse to shrink under criticism, when they maintain calm while others escalate emotionally, the environment begins recalculating. And recalculation produces two very different reactions: attraction and resistance. Some individuals are drawn toward confident people, not because they fully understand them, but because confidence feels like stability. It feels like direction in an uncertain environment. These individuals begin orbiting closer. They listen more carefully to your words. They watch how you handle tension. They start aligning themselves with your presence. But there is another group that reacts very differently. Those whose authority depends on the compliance of others. For them, confidence is not inspiring, it is destabilizing.
Because confident individuals cannot be easily pressured into agreement. They do not submit to intimidation. They do not collapse under social discomfort. And that means something very dangerous for fragile hierarchies. Control becomes uncertain. When control becomes uncertain, strategies begin forming behind the surface, rarely in obvious ways. Human beings prefer indirect conflict. They prefer subtle methods that allow them to maintain the appearance of cooperation while quietly protecting their position. You may notice small changes, a joke at your expense that feels slightly sharper than before, a rumor that seems to circulate without a clear origin, an idea you expressed suddenly being dismissed, then repeated later by someone else. These behaviors are not accidents, they are forms of social positioning. Because if direct dominance fails, people attempt indirect methods of influence. Machiavelli described this reality centuries ago. Open confrontation is risky. Quiet maneuvering is far more common. And confident individuals often become targets of this maneuvering without realizing it. Not because they are hated, but because they are unpredictable. And unpredictability threatens those who rely on control. But here is where the deeper layer of strategy appears. The inexperienced confident individual interprets these dynamics emotionally. They feel betrayed. They feel attacked. They confront people directly, demanding explanations. And in doing so, they reveal something valuable to their opponents: sensitivity. Once someone knows how to provoke an emotional reaction from you, they have discovered leverage. But the experienced strategist sees these dynamics differently. They understand something that most people never fully accept. Opposition is information. Every criticism reveals the critic's insecurity. Every rumor reveals someone's fear. Every attempt to undermine you exposes the structure of influence operating beneath the surface. In other words, resistance is a map, and the calm observer begins studying that map. Who speaks first when your ideas are challenged? Who avoids eye contact when tension rises? Who suddenly becomes unusually agreeable when authority figures are present? These signals reveal alliances, motivations, dependencies. And once those patterns become visible, the confident individual gains something far more valuable than approval: clarity. Clarity allows you to move with precision. Instead of reacting emotionally, you begin responding strategically. You allow certain people to believe they have influence over you. You remain silent when others expect confrontation. You occasionally agree when disagreement would provoke unnecessary resistance. Not out of weakness, but out of calculation. Because sometimes the most powerful move in a hierarchy is not asserting dominance, it is allowing others to underestimate you. Underestimation lowers defenses, and lowered defenses reveal opportunities. This is one of the darker lessons hidden within Machiavellian thinking. Power does not always come from appearing powerful. Sometimes it comes from appearing harmless. The quiet individual who rarely argues may be observing everything. The person who smiles during criticism may be calculating responses that will unfold weeks later. The individual who does not chase recognition may be accumulating influence where no one expects it. Confidence allows patience. Patience allows positioning, and positioning determines outcomes long before visible conflict appears. But this level of strategic thinking requires something most people lack: emotional independence. Because when someone insults you, the ego demands response. When someone questions your competence, pride demands defense. When someone spreads rumors, anger demands retaliation. Yet reacting to every provocation keeps you trapped inside other people's games. The confident strategist chooses their battles carefully. They understand that influence grows quietly, like pressure building beneath the surface of the earth. When the shift finally occurs, it appears sudden to everyone else, but in reality, it was inevitable. Now ask yourself something honestly. When people challenge or undermine you, do you react immediately, Or do you step back and observe what their behavior reveals about them? There is a profound difference between those two responses. One feeds the chaos of the environment. The other begins mastering it. If you understand the value of observation over reaction, write this in the comments. I watch before I move. Because those who learn to observe first rarely lose control of the situation. But even this level of awareness leads to a final transformation. The deepest layer of confidence is not simply resisting control or observing social dynamics. It is understanding how to reshape them. And once someone learns that, they stop playing within the system. They begin quietly influencing the system itself.
At the highest level, confidence stops looking like confidence. This is the paradox most people never understand. When confidence is immature, it seeks recognition. It wants to be seen, acknowledged, validated. It announces itself through bold statements, confrontations, and constant demonstrations of certainty. But the deeper confidence grows, the less it needs to announce anything. Because the truly confident individual is no longer trying to prove their position inside the hierarchy. They are studying how the hierarchy itself functions. And once you understand how hierarchies function, something changes in your mind forever. You stop reacting to individuals. You start analyzing systems. Every social structure, whether in business, friendship circles, politics, or online communities, operates through a combination of perception, influence, and emotional leverage. Titles matter less than people think. What matters is who shapes perception, who controls attention, who sets the emotional tone of the group. These individuals are rarely the loudest voices. Often they are the calmest, the ones who speak less, but when they do, everyone listens. The ones who rarely chase approval, yet somehow receive it. The ones who remain composed when others become reactive. Because composure sends a powerful signal to the human mind: control. And human beings instinctively follow those who appear in control of themselves. This is the final transformation of confidence. It becomes gravitational. Instead of pushing against the environment, it quietly pulls the environment toward itself. People begin adjusting their behavior around you. Their tone softens, their arguments become more cautious, their opinions start aligning with yours without you demanding it. Not because you forced them, but because your certainty influences the psychological atmosphere. Machiavelli understood something ancient rulers relied upon. Power becomes most effective when it appears natural. When influence is invisible, resistance disappears. The moment people feel manipulated, they resist. But when influence feels like their own decision, they cooperate willingly. This is why the most sophisticated form of confidence does not dominate conversations. It guides them. It asks questions that redirect thinking. It introduces ideas calmly, then allows others to repeat them as if they were their own. It allows opponents to exhaust themselves emotionally while remaining unmoved. Because the calmest mind in a tense room eventually becomes the reference point for everyone else. Think carefully about the people you have encountered in life who carried undeniable presence. They did not rush. They did not over-explain. They did not react impulsively to criticism. Their confidence was quiet, controlled, measured, and because it was controlled, it felt powerful. But here's the darker truth behind that level of confidence. Once you truly understand how social perception works, you begin seeing patterns everywhere. You see how quickly crowds follow certainty. You see how easily authority can be imitated. You see how emotional reactions can be triggered with simple words. And you realize something that most people never want to admit. Human behavior is far more predictable than it appears. The same fears repeat. The same ego triggers repeat. The same hunger for status, belonging, and validation repeats across cultures, workplaces, friendships, and even families. To someone who studies these patterns, influence becomes almost mechanical.
And that realization carries a heavy responsibility, because confidence combined with psychological awareness creates a dangerous level of power. You can destabilize fragile leaders simply by remaining calm. You can gain loyalty simply by displaying certainty when others hesitate. You can redirect conversations, reputations, and decisions with subtle signals most people never consciously notice. This is the true dark side of confidence, not arrogance, not pride, control. Control over your reactions, control over how others perceive you, and eventually, subtle control over the environment itself. But there is one final truth that separates the few who master this level from the many who never will: discipline. Because once someone realizes they can influence people, temptation appears. The temptation to manipulate recklessly, to dominate conversations unnecessarily, to prove superiority rather than maintain stability. And those who fall into that temptation eventually destroy their own influence. Power that is displayed too aggressively invites rebellion. Power that is exercised strategically creates loyalty. The true strategist understands restraint. They do not need to win every argument. They do not need to correct every misunderstanding. They do not need to prove their intelligence to people who cannot recognize it. Their confidence is internal, stable, unaffected by temporary approval or criticism. And because of that stability, they operate differently from everyone around them. While others react emotionally, they remain composed. While others chase recognition, they build influence quietly. While others fight for position, they allow position to form around them. This is the final evolution of confidence. You stop asking how to fit into the hierarchy. You start realizing you can reshape it, not loudly, not violently, but through the quiet authority of someone who understands human nature. Now ask yourself something honestly. When you leave a room, does your presence linger in people's minds, or do conversations continue exactly as if you were never there? The answer to that question reveals more about your influence than any title or achievement ever could. If this perspective resonated with you, write this in the comments: I control my presence. Because the moment someone becomes aware of their presence, they begin shaping it deliberately. And those who shape their presence eventually shape their environment. But I want to end with a final question for you. After hearing these ideas, what is one belief, rule, or behavior you will change in your life? Write it in the comments, not a long explanation, just one sentence, because those who declare change publicly are far more likely to follow through. And those who understand the darker side of confidence rarely see the world the same way again.